All right, so I've been hesitant about making this video, but I went through and looked at what my first year of expenses were in my first season racing in amateur with Azra, and I want to make a video that I wish I could have sent myself a couple of years ago. Just because if you're kind of like me and you're kind of doing this whole thing solo, you may have no idea, and you see all this stuff about how everybody talks about how racing has to be the most expensive thing on the planet, and you'll eat every single dollar that you have. That wasn't exactly what I found. Now, I found that I could quintuple my expenses if you really want to be on the sharp end of the stick and go crazy with it, but that's not necessarily what it has to be. So, just a little bit of background about me and the bike and whatnot. So, the bike that I bought the bike in 2020. I bought it as a road bike. It's a Superstock Legal 2001 SV650S Suzuki. It would have been a lot cheaper for me to have just bought a prepped SV650 race bike. Man, you could find people trying to give these things away for like $1,500 to $2,500, perfectly ready to get out on there on the track. But I took the expensive route, had it as a street bike because I wanted to be comfortable just riding it a bit. So that's where I'm at with that. I had ridden, my first track day was at the end of 2020, and I did 2 years of track days. So roughly 20 track days, and I'm not a terribly quick rider. And as I mentioned, I'm on this slide on my PowerPoint presentation. At the time I wanted to get to racing, I was in the lower intermediate group of MotoVid, and I'd done about 20 track days. So I see no reason to wait, especially after my own experience. I see absolutely no reason to wait until you're in advanced. As soon as you get comfortable, just go for it. Scary, but go for it. So I raced with Azra in the Midwest, and I raced a lightweight bike. So obviously, if you run a 600 or especially a 1000, your expenses in it, whatnot, can be a whole lot different than this. A lightweight bike does make things a lot easier, specifically on tires, is probably the main thing. Yeah, I'd say tires. Fuel economy and whatnot is going to be a little bit better, but tires is going to be the main thing. So with the race entry fees, what I found was that my weekend of doing a race weekend wasn't that much different than doing a track day weekend. So to start off, you got to do a learning curves school, which I highly recommend. It's a great school. If you take it in the Midwest, basically I think it's a 1 day class, and the two instructors are fantastic. One of them is the lightweight record holder at Blackhawk Farms, and I would recommend it even if you weren't planning on going racing. I recommended it to one of my friends that I met at doing track days, and he took the class without any intention of racing. He said that was 100% worth it. It was a great class. So $250, go out there. You're maybe on track 4 times, but there's a lot of class with it, and you do a mock race. And in the mock race that I had, that was back before the Roebling Road, whatever it is, incident where the ambulance almost killed somebody. But we did have to ride around an ambulance on that one, so you probably won't have to do that anymore. So $250 for the race class, $150 to get your Azra racing license for the year. I think that went up to like $165, but when I got it, it was $150. So to do a sprint race, and when I did 5 racing weekends, and generally what I did was 3 races per weekend. Ultra lightweight superbike, which is what I'm most competitive in, lightweight super sport, which fairly competitive in, and then the GTL race. And the GT races they're mini endurance races. They're 25 minutes, and they're intimidating to sign up for. And I know I've met a lot of people that won't run them. They just like doing the sprints. If you're just getting into this, sign up for the GT races, because it's 25 minutes of race time versus a 7-lap sprint, which comes out to be about 10 minutes on track. And you learn so much in those GT races. You are going to get lapped. And that was one of the things I was worried about when I started. Like, I wanted to get to a point where I was at least quick enough in the 7-lap sprint where I wasn't going to be lapped. Now that I know what I know now, I wouldn't actually worry about that. But at the time, I wanted to make sure that I was actually not going to get lapped and hamper the, leaders of the expert class on the last lap of the race. So I would do 2 sprint races and 1 GTL, so 3 races per weekend. So I did 11 sprint races at $90 per, so $990. And I did 4 GTL races at $100 a piece, so $400 for that. The biggest, coolest thing, I think, about getting your race license and then getting to go to those weekends is the track day that many of them have before then. The track day is a practice day. Now, unlike, a normal track day where there's 30 bikes per class and all the bikes are different, on the practice days, dude, at Blackhawk, there were other times where I was out there with like 4 other bikes. That's it. So I would make gigantic changes on the bike. I would take all the preload out, put all the preload in just to see how it would affect me. And I knew I wasn't going to be riding around anybody. And if I was, we were on similarly paced bikes. And I had a level of confidence around them, and they probably had a level of confidence around me, that we were able to just get around each other very quickly. So if for nothing else, getting a race license just to do those track days before the race weekend is kind of worth it. So my race entry fees for my first year was $2,420. Looking at camping, I'm really lucky on where I am in that the primary track that I run at is only about 100 miles, maybe even like 80 miles away. I did a race at Autobahn, 3 races at Blackhawk Farms, and 1 race at Pittsburgh. So looking at $3.25 per gallon at 125 gallons, I spent roughly $400 in gas in my F-150 pulling a little Harbor Freight trailer. So you can see in the background, this is what my camping setup is. Balling on a budget, basically a pop-up tent, my F-150 to pull a little Harbor Freight trailer, and that's all I got. Tolls, which I had to pay on my way to Pittsburgh. This one I included because I'm still mad about it, but my little Harbor Freight trailer, when I went through the iPass cameras, they recognized my bike on top of the trailer as like a 4-axle trailer. So I got annihilated on tolls. Like I was paying 53-foot trailer rates. But anyway, it was $182 back and forth to Pittsburgh. Camping fees, I know some tracks have that. The ones that I went to didn't, but I wanted to include that in case some of the tracks that you might go to have those. There are gate fees at the tracks that I went to. I'm pretty sure it was $30 at both Blackhawk Farms and Pittsburgh and at Audubon, so $150 for those. And then food and drink. I don't buy food at the track. I buy a $3 coffee at Blackhawk both mornings. I fill up that 5-gallon water jug, buy a bunch of Gatorade, and then I make for a whole weekend, I make 6 sandwiches and I buy a bunch of granola bars and stuff like that, Gatorade and whatnot. So roughly $60 per weekend. Those are my camping fees. The bike consumables. These are something I would expect to pay every time I go out to the track. And this is where you can really get out of control. Once you get to the sharper end of the stick, this is where your expenses can go way, way, way up. As a novice, I'm nowhere near maximizing what my bike is capable of. And in fact, I was actually planning on making it through the entire year on a single set of tires, and I almost did until one of them started delaminating. This is where you can get a little bit out of control with it, but in novice, in say lightweight or 400s or 300s or whatnot, you really don't have to go that much more nuts than you would at a track day. So I stopped for fuel on the way to the track. I got to get out of my county because they don't sell ethanol-free gas. I would run it with ethanol either way, but I bring 15 gallons of gas to the track. I don't usually go through the whole thing, but I bring 15. I run both the generator and my bike off of that. I change the oil after every track day, and on a budget using Rotella T6. I have bought some new oil for this year that I'm going to start trying. I bought some Motul 5100, but those are my costs. I change the oil after every weekend. So I also throw a new filter in there, a high flow filter. So $65 for the filters, $92 for the Rotella. Tires wise, like I said, I probably at my pace could have made it through the entire year on a single set of Pirelli SC2 tires. And this is my first time ever even running slicks was out at Pittsburgh, I'd never even been on them before, nor had I ever used a warmer before. I didn't really know how to use a warmer. But I bought a set of tires about, I think before the second last weekend is when I replaced the original SC2s. And then I bought a set of Pirelli Reigns as well. I bought them from Feral Performance. I like buying them at the track. I normally do all my own tire changes for street bikes and whatnot at home, but it makes it so much more convenient. Let's just say maybe it is an extra $20 to buy them at the track. Dude, fighting with tires in your basement, garage, driveway, whatever, it's way easier just to do it at the track. It really is, and you're supporting somebody who's supporting the sport. So if you can buy them at the track, I don't know, you got your own tire changer in your trailer, do that instead. Engine ice, so you can't run a ethylene glycol solution, so I use engine ice. If you're running Wira, or actually I got to figure this out. I don't know what ARMA actually allows, and I don't know anything about the West Coast because that's too far away. But I put engine ice into my bike because it is legal for ASRA, so I changed it again just this winter. But it could be water wetter and water, which is even cheaper. I'm just worried about freeze damage given the fact that I'm in the Midwest. Motul RBF 600. Maybe this isn't the best choice, but I was having some brake fade issues. Now I've changed my master cylinder going into this next year, but I sprung for slightly more expensive than the $4 per 500 milliliter tanks that I have been buying, which is just for all my tractors. I've just been using the $4 Valvoline bottle. And then I went through, I don't think a single set of Vesra brake pads. I use the RJLs. I'm calling it 2. It probably wasn't full 2, but have an extra set of brake pads with you. So race-specific mandatory bike prep. A couple things that you'll need if you're going racing as opposed to just doing a track day is you're going to have number plates and you're going to have a transponder. Now, your number plates, if you saw earlier, your number plates can literally be just a yellow sheet of vinyl or just yellow duct tape with some cheap numbers on it. And the first weekend after I got my race license, I told myself I'm not racing. I just want to have this experience so I can think about it all winter. And obviously I got talked into it by, people who were there. So I was loaned or given some yellow vinyl and some electrical tape. And we just wrote 109 on my bike. And that was all you really need. But I ended up buying some nicer looking number plates from Chris at Drip and Wet. And he was awesome. I talked to him multiple times, and I'd recommend him 100%. And there's probably another guy local to you, which if you actually want to talk to the person, well, you can call or email Chris, or just find a local guy who does number plates for other racers near your track day or race organization. And then the transponder is really stupid expensive. They switched to the MyLapse thing. So I got lucky in that I didn't buy the year before because, what was it, like Westby or something like that? Everybody who had one of those, they got obsoleted. So I got in like literally at the exact right time. Still stupid expensive. I bought the one with no subscription for $539. You can get the one with a subscription where you get the physical transponder, and then you got to so I think it's like $160, and then every year it's like $100. Now, would that ultimately be cheaper? Because given the battery life and everything, it'd probably be cheaper for me to just do that. Yes. I just fucking hate subscriptions. So I bought the non-subscription transponder. So that's $674 from that. This was race-specific elective bike prep that I did. None of this was mandatory, not for my bike. Some of this stuff will be mandatory for other bikes. But it was stuff that I felt I needed to do, some of it more so than others. So my first race weekend, I didn't use tire warmers. I used Pirelli SC3 track day tires, and I brought home a little brass piece of trophy that said you finished third place in Rookies Cup, the now defunct Rookies Cup. It's not necessary. Just go real hard on your warm-up lap, and because everything gets so stacked up in the beginning, if you're not fast anyway, you're going to be fine. But I know that I needed to have tire warmers and a generator at some point. So I bought a generator used, Champion 2500 for $400. I think they retail, at least at the time I was looking, for like $550. But I found a guy near me that had run it once, so I bought it for $400. I probably wouldn't get a 2000. I'd look for something with a little bit more capacity, because I have run other people's. I've run 2 sets of warmers off of those at once, just at track days with other people, like considering getting. Actually, this situation came up. A friend of mine was considering getting warmers and moving to slicks and whatnot. I was like, well, let's just try using the warmers and see how it goes. So, I mean, tried it out. We my generator ran 2 sets of warmers just fine. The warmers that I bought were the Woodcraft warmers. I would recommend these to somebody getting their first set of warmers, especially if they have an SV650, for this reason. One, you can't burn them, because they have a disconnect that you cannot get them off of your wheel without disconnecting them. That, if you don't have something like that and you don't shut those things off, they will crinkle on themselves and they will burn themselves. And I watched that happen immediately after somebody said, pitted next to me, had just bought their warmers, spent $500 on warmers, didn't realize it, burnt the shit out of them. All right, the other thing that's really nice about the Woodcraft ones, the ones that I got for the SV, is that the rear accommodates both from a 160 up to a 180. So I bought it in the case that I ended up moving to a quicker, a bigger bike. If I move from a 650, not that the displacement's bigger, but to a faster bike. If I move from my SV650, which has a 160/60 rear, and I move to, let's say, a Yamaha R6 with a 180 rear, the Woodcrafts accommodate both the 160 and the 180. I've heard there are better brands that can get your tires hotter and whatnot, but the Woodcrafts have worked really well for me, so I would recommend them. The AIM Solo 2 lap timer, again, there's cheaper options for this, and if I was just doing track day riding, I didn't buy it until I started racing, but I did want a lap timer to just get an idea. And this thing, I rarely use it during the race. Actually, the one thing I use it for during the races is during a GTL race to know what lap I'm on. So if I know I'm going to roughly go 16 to 18 laps during a race, and all of a sudden I'm feeling tired, I'll look down to see what lap I'm on. And if I see I'm on lap 7, then I'm like, oh, shit. All right, back it off and just start breathing better. So that's one of the main reasons the main benefits I've seen out of that lap timer. The other benefit I've seen is on those race day practice days on the Friday before, when I take giant swings at changing the suspension completely. Even if I'm not feeling it, that thing is going to tell me whether or not I'm making a move in the right direction. So to go with that, there is a AIM Solo 2 mount that 419 Racing makes, and it's a 41 millimeter clamp that bolts right onto the top of the triple. And while I probably could have found a way to mount this thing for cheaper than $50, dude, get one of those things. They make them in different sizes, obviously, for different forks. Just save yourself the entire weekend of frustration. I think they're based out of Ohio. That thing's awesome. I would get one of those. Steering stabilizer, realistically, I don't need it. Some racing organizations, you do need it. I think it is a requirement. The SV650 really doesn't need it, not when you're sitting in superstock form. But I'd watch so many videos of pit race leading up, because I just watched them over the course of the winter, just trying to get prepped for it, because it was my first ever full-fledged race weekend, not doing the learning curves. And there's a thing over Wheelie Hill when you're coming out of turn 2. I just got so worried watching. That being said, I ended up buying a used one from TWF Racing. If you run a SV650, there's a very good chance you've either read advice from or had specific advice in person or over email from Zoran there. So I ended up buying a used Pitbull one for $250, and I love it. I'm thrilled about having that one. It does require drilling into your triple, but I didn't really care because this is never going to be a street bike again. Brake and clutch guard. I got the Woodcraft ones, so those were $170. The brake guard, again, that's probably a requirement at a lot of racing organizations, and one I will never run without. Not after my experiences this year of banging bars against another bike, where if it would have been my brake lever instead of the brake guard, I may have just flipped. Instead, it was just no big deal. Clutch guard, I don't think is a requirement at a lot of places. I have it, so I put it on, but I don't think it's nearly the same requirement as a brake guard. Clutch case guard was very expensive for the SV650, specifically the Gen 1, because you can't run the RG or something? I don't know, the case cover is a little bit different. But anyway, that was $200. That was from Woodcraft. And then the other side, the left side, the flywheel case guard, that was $81. Real easy. You can install that thing in like 5 minutes. If you've never done safety wiring before, go to Amazon. Get a safety wire pliers. Get some, I don't remember the exact gauge, but thinner stainless is good. I don't know if it's 3/64 or something like that. And get a bunch of bits, buy at least 10 of them, and just go to town. Your first safety wiring attempts are going to look like shit. Don't feel bad about just cutting them off, trying again. You're going to do that a bunch of times, and then all of a sudden it becomes therapeutic, and it's kind of fun to do. And then you just want to get it exactly perfect. So I've kind of come to actually enjoy safety wiring. I hate doing a bunch of motorcycle maintenance, even though I do it so often, but I've come to actually enjoy the safety wiring. I got lucky in that I was able to buy a spare front wheel and rear wheel for $50 a piece from just people I met at the track. This is one of those reasons why I would recommend an SV650 to pretty much anybody as an intro to track riding or race riding, because everybody has one or has had one. And so many people buy one and then move away from one, and then they got all their extra shit, and they're looking to unload it for basically nothing because it sits in their garage taking up space, and they get yelled at from their wife because it's taking up space. So you can get a bunch of stuff for the SV650 cheap, and that way I can bring a set of rain tires with me, or a rain wheel setup. Rear sets are basically a requirement on the SV650. You're going to end up knocking the pegs into the ground without them. They're more expensive now, but I paid $380 for mine, and then I got really lucky in that I bought they're fairly rash, but a used set of Hot Bodies Gixxer 01 to 03 fairings for $150 from somebody, again, that I met at the track. Went over and picked those things up, and that worked awesome. Bike setup and spares. So these were things I specifically wanted to have either just for comfort on the bike or a little adjustability on the bike, or because if I go down in a low side, you put so much time and effort and money into going to one of these events. I don't want to get knocked out by just a simple low side and, I don't know, like a clip-on peg breaks off, a rear set peg breaks off, or the clip-on gets bent, and then I got to drive all the way home, especially if I drove all the way out from here to Pitt or something like that. So the clip-ons, I switched them from the SV OEMs, which is something you want to do if you have an SV650. I don't know what the Gen 2s look like, but the Gen 1s mount in a way that they can bend the fork, which becomes a way bigger issue. That is a go home kind of issue if that happens. So I found a used set on Revzilla for $100 for the bases, and then they're $15 or $14.50 for each lever. And then I just got 2 spare levers on those. Rear set spares, $110 on those. I bought another rear sprocket, so I run the stock gearing on the 650S, which is 1544, and I wanted a 45 rear. I'm probably going to add one more rear. I want to see if I can fit the 46. I want to try that at Blackhawk, so I'm probably going to add another one of those. I want to have a spare clutch lever, spare brake lever, and then I ended up going to a keyless ignition and fuel cap. The primary thing I wanted was a keyless ignition. $64 for the Woodcraft thing. I will warn you that they say it's plug and play on the SV650S Gen 1. 100% it is not. And if you want to know why that is, Google or look at SV Rider, put in keyless ignition SV650S. You'll find my thread about it. It's entirely too short. I emailed them about it and they said, it worked for some people. And now it's gotten more traction as more and more people buy this thing. They're finding out, dude, it's way too freaking short. I put a 16-inch, I just soldered in a 16-inch extension, and it works fine. So it made it through the whole year. Ran a lot in the rain. It's fine. And then I put a Vortex keyless fuel cap on it, so I don't have to worry about the key, because that was always a worry for me. The VP fuel race cans, or whatever they are, whatever the fuel cans are, I bought 2 of those, the nice 5-gallon ones. They make fueling way, way, way easier. And I put 2.5 on this chart because I only needed 2 of them. And then I bring one other 5-gallon in just one of the ones that I bought from Harbor Freight. So on the bike setup and spares, I got $691.74 on there. And then the last set of expenses was safety gear. And I put this picture on here because my buddy Steve, who I met at my second ever Road America track day, while I am faster than him at Blackhawk Farms, he does like to remind me that he is still faster than me at Road America. Now, he does happen to be a little bit older than me, and I do refer to him as the world's fastest grandpa, but one of these days I'm going to actually catch up to him at Road America. But I'm not there yet. But with safety gear, I had actually bought this Helite vest because I bought the suit that I've been wearing. I bought a $400 RST suit, just, the cheapest RST suit from Sport Bike Track Gear that I could, just to get onto the track, and the suit has worked fine. But at some point, I know I want to upgrade to a better suit, but I didn't know when that's going to be. So I bought one of the airbag vests, and I wouldn't even do a track day again without an airbag. I prefer the tether because I don't trust robots. My favorite movie is I, Robot, and I oftentimes feel like Will Smith and not trusting robots, specifically Sonny. But I like having the assurance of the tether. But the Helite airbag goes right over my suit. It'll go over any other suit that I buy. And that thing was $919. I can repack it at the track, so I have 2 refills with me. And then I bought a spare strap that actually goes onto the bike just in case something happens to that thing. So that was about $1,000 in safety gear, but I would have bought that whether or not I was racing or not. If I'm going onto the track at this point, I am wearing an airbag. So, in summary, after this very long TED talk that I've given, the green ones are consumables or renewables, or that's going to be what it is every year. So what I'm seeing in 5 weekends is that I'm spending roughly $1,100 per race weekend. So race entry fees at $2,420. Travel and camping was about $800 for me, and the consumables were about $2,100 for me. The race-specific mandatory bike prep, $675. Yeah, basically the stuff that I wanted to put into the bike and to my safety and stuff that I don't have to buy every year was about $5,000. Now, I don't have to buy all of that again. So that's not a renewable, but I wanted to include it because if you're like me and you're riding solo into this and you don't exactly know all of this stuff, I wanted to include all of the expenses that I had, and those were all of them. So $10,671, it sounds like a ridiculous amount to go and ride around in novice and not be the fastest guy out there. In fact, it sounds like I should be a whole lot faster than I am. But I would argue that people that take track days really seriously are probably spending about this much, and you probably already have all of the stuff that is in the blue category where you don't have to buy it every year. And there is something you get out of a race weekend that is completely different than a track day weekend. It's way more fun. It's just, until you do it, you probably won't understand it, and I don't have a great way to put it into words how different it is, but it's 100% worth trying. If you have any inkling as a track day rider about going racing, you can absolutely try it, and you don't have to break the bank. You're already sort of breaking the bank by doing track days, so why not just give it a shot? Last thing I wanted to end on here was, if you enjoyed any bit of this video, one thing I would recommend doing is taking a look at the air fence fund that Road Racing World does. I have seen some nasty crashes where people have slammed into those things at Blackhawk, and they have gotten right back up. And if there was no air fence there, we may have been saying goodbye to another person. So I just donated to it. If any of my videos in the past have ever been useful to you, I would consider donating to the Road Racing World Air Fence Fund, because it might help you, might help me, might help somebody else in the future. So that's what I got. Hopefully this is useful to somebody. Hopefully this gives somebody some encouragement that is a track day rider to just take a look at racing, because it really is a different experience, and it's about one of the most fun ones you can have. So you watched this far. Thanks for watching.